something that's always made me happy. When I studied, when I continue to study even today, dedicating the less time um, to the Buddhist teachings, but it's never a study that's completely linear, in the sense that it's not that you learn something and then you learn the next and then the one after that, and then the first one you learned is gone. And actually, it's more of a cyclic process where you study something, you try to have understood something, and then as you go ahead, you get to something else, and then you see actually you go back because it's always connected to the next, and then gradually we have a deeper understanding. Even the most basic principles are as we go, as the years go on, as the experiences go on, and goes back and sees the same thing with different eyes. And this is a really beautiful sign. I think it's really important often to go back to the root. One reason would be to, after a while that we're in a system, that we're inside a religion, we have this tendency to take for granted the reality in which we find ourselves. And in front of that, I don't want to say that we forget, but somehow we're not as aware as we were of, the why we were doing what we're doing, why we do what we do. And one of the fundamental principles that we find again and again in the various teachings and prayers, but everywhere, and in particular in the Mahayana tradition, the one of which we're a part, is the importance of seeing the other, the importance of taking care of the other, the importance of love, of compassion, the importance of equanimity, joy. And it's something that it's what we call the four measurables. It's translated also like the four immeasurable meditations, as if the meditations are immeasurable, but they're qualities that we all have, but that we need to develop without limit, because we all have love, we all have compassion, we all have equanimity, we have joy in the sense of being able to rejoice, but it's limited. What determines this limit of our feelings of ours is not our ability or not. What determines the limit is not how strong or weak these feelings are, but the fact that we between us and the other, we're not able to relate with the other without putting in the middle as a priority the I and the mind. And between us and the other, we put my needs, my point of view, my reality, and we try to protect this I and this my, protect and increase what we think is related to our own happiness, everything that's related to my family, my country, my religion, everything with which I identify myself. I try to protect all of that. And it's interesting to see how we have this tendency. I've seen this many times. So we see someone that we don't know at all, And at a certain point, we realize that that person has an object or a way of dressing, or it has something that somehow connects to something, to our own identity. So if I think that if I consider myself a Buddhist and I see maybe the person has a mala or has a T-shirt that has a phrase of a certain type, or anything like that. What happens when we see in the other person a sign, that that person somehow is attracted to what we ourselves are attracted to? Attraction comes. In reality, the reason for which we develop attraction towards that person is not because we care about that person, it's but because that person is somehow is attracted to um, is attracted to the same things we're attracted to, and it's a way to confirm and reinforce our own identity. We try in our way of living. We try to find a kind of internal correspondence, this coherence between what we think, what we feel, what we live. We try to find a coherence among all of this correspondence. And when there are others who think like me, who act like me, all of that becomes a kind of confirmation to say what I'm doing is right, it's good, because somehow we're looking in the other this confirmation of our own identity, our own way of being, and naturally we're going to try to surround ourselves and relate with people who are as are similar to us. When I see someone who has an attitude that's similar to mine, or is attracted to something that I'm attracted to, or is part of the same group, whether be it political or religious, and we're attracted to that person. This doesn't mean that in reality we're able to see the other and we're attracted to the other, but mostly we're attracted to our own selves, our own ego, our own need to nourish our sense of security. I don't know if that's clear, but we need to go beyond this, and that's why we talk about developing an unlimited love. These words that we often recite: may all beings have happiness and its causes, may all beings be free from suffering and its causes, may all beings live in equanimity, unaffected by attraction to dear ones and aversion to others. And may all beings sorry, then there's also the one of the joy. In a few words, we dedicate that we generate this aspiration to all beings being happy, and the causes of happiness, and then be free from suffering, and then be free from relating to others who are on the basis of attraction and aversion, but that they can relate to everyone in the same way. This is what we mean by equanimity. And we also dedicate that may all beings live in a constant state of joy once they've reached that state of happiness and joy. May they continue that. It's a way to generate the joy based on the happiness of others. But this prayer, the so-called prayer, there's a part that's fundamental. It says, may all beings. It says, may all beings. This may all means may each and every one. For me to be able to love someone, first I need to allow myself to see the other and accept him or her. And we often have a conflict we don't allow that, which keeps us from loving others. This conflict that exists between this judgment and being um, agreeing with you or not, and loving you in the sense that if I love you, I should I should agree with what you do and what you think. Let's try to think of an example, like the worst person that you could ever imagine. Maybe someone we've met, or a politician, or a historical figure. When often people name Hitler. I've never met him. In reality, what I know is what I was told. But beyond this, let's think of someone, you know, each one from its own experiences, or social cultural context. Everyone will have that person in mind. Think of someone, just it's an example of someone who is bad, evil, with distorted visions, ideas. Someone who acts in the wrong way. Try to imagine this person in front of us, and we ask ourselves a simple question: why not love this person? What keeps me from loving, for seeing this person and saying, I I want you to be happy. It, want you to be free from suffering. And what we'll see is that often this brings out a kind of conflict inside of us. Because how can I love you, uh, given what you do, given what you are? As, as if loving you means that I am favorable, with what you do, you know? But, we also have the opposite idea. How can I not defend you, given that I love you? My son can have done the worst thing, or the most wrong thing, but I need to defend him. Or the same thing can happen for the husband and the wife, or whoever. When we're very attracted to someone, that person can do anything, and we look for every justification first. Oh, I'm sure somehow he's right. The things are not exactly how they seem, and we're always looking for any way possible to justify that feeling of love and attraction that we have for that person. But in reality, loving is something more much more simple. It's less contorted. It's less elaborate. It's simply recognizing that you suffer, and desiring that you don't suffer. I see you, and desiring that you're happy. And the fact that I love you doesn't mean that I agree with what you do, with what you think, the way you act. Absolutely not. One thing doesn't take away the other. I can be strongly, strongly against your way of behaving, and at the same time love you. One thing doesn't take away the other, because if loving the other means that I agree with that I agree with how they act, you know, then a bodhisattva, a Buddha, would agree with the way of behaving of all beings, because we talk about loving beings. So, uh, so then at that point, a prerequisite for loving all beings would be um, agreeing with everyone, or loving would mean not agreeing. But we need to simplify it, because necessity of agreeing, this difficulty we have in loving someone that acts differently than us or has a way that according to us is negative or wrong, etc. The difficulty we have to to accept and love in a sense, it's not really because the other is evil, but it's a difficulty that we have that has to do with our own identity. It's like saying, who am I if I'm your friend? If I love you, who do I become? How can I love you and be close to you or be linked to you, but I'm not anything like you? I don't know if that's clear. This dynamic, it just manifests on many levels, but, but at the basis, it's important to understand there's a distinction between being and thoughts, emotions, choices, and behavior. When we ask ourselves, who am I? What am I? And we see that each one of us is made up of an enormous quantity of thoughts, of choices, of actions, desires, of aversions, emotions of every type. Very, very often contradictory. And what are we? We're a, we're a flow of all of this. It's not because I get angry that I am anger. I have feelings of anger, of love, of sadness, of so many different things, of joy. But when we see someone, even if mostly with others, our tendency is to see ways of acting and choices and judge them and attribute, generalize, and attribute a name, generalizing that. That person is that. When no one is nothing. People have different behaviors, they have ideas and feelings. What I am is a flow among all of these feelings and thoughts, etc., etc. I don't know if this difference is clear. And so when we're able to distinguish between the person and his or her actions, her her words, her thoughts, that helps us a little bit to get closer to judge differently. So in many traditions, and in Buddhism, especially, like Buddha gave, he highlighted a lot, or this, I was told like this. I mean, he talked about the importance of loving, the importance of opening one's heart, seeing the other, of going beyond one's own obsession of the I and the my. And one of the ways to do this is to see the other people around us and in any regardless of the situation and act mentally, verbally, or physically in the, the best way to contribute positively to the situation in which we are, obviously guided by our knowledge, by our ignorance, by our wisdom, by what we are. We can't act going differently from what we are, being different from what we are. And 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 we hope that in a few years we'll be um, more mature than what we are today. kind of, I mean, it'd be a really good sign um, to say, looking back, oh, I would have done it differently. But obviously, today we need to do with what we have and what where we find ourselves. But the point is not what I say or what I do, but it's for whom and why. Acting, thinking, keeping as a priority the common good, keeping as a priority effectively the necessity of each person, happiness of the other, and asking oneself, how can I act to contribute to the well-being, the common well-being of those who are around me every moment. If I get into a room, for example, I walk into a room, how can I contribute to those who are there? I go to dinner, there are other people, maybe family members. How can I contribute to the well-being of those who are present? I see someone. How can I contribute to your happiness, to your well-being? Put as a priority happiness and the well-being of those who are around us. And this can bring, at the beginning, a kind of like an inner rebellion where we say, well, who's going to think about me? Our needs naturally, we need to meet them. We need to eat. We need to sleep. We need to rest. We need to do things that bring us joy, etc. But when we start to act with this attitude, or we ask ourselves, what can I do to 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 help in the context in which I find myself? How can I contribute to the well-being? Gradually, we'll find joy in this, and this will bring so much joy, much more than what we'll be able to obtain, when we're constantly thinking about our own needs. So it's not something immediate. It's not something that you develop from one day to the next. It's a very gradual process. But let's try to bring it, to put it into practice and not just in words and the prayers. This is what I wanted to talk about today. Because every time we begin a sadhana, we sit down, we're super concentrated, with the face of a concentrated one, with this, and we sing Semchen, the Semchen, Semchen, Pamchen, Devata, Parikurichi, Semchen, Pamchen, Devata, which is, I'm not making fun. I mean, this is wonderful. It's very good. But afterward, there's a moment where that moment ends, and we find ourselves, or we need to interact with with people, with other beings, every form of life, nature, and there's the real trial. There is where we need to be careful. When we, you know, when we make the prayer, may all beings be free. Sorry, neti chakdang, speaking Tibetan. May all may all beings um, nering chakdang live live in equanimity, free from aversion to others and attraction, free from aversion to others and attraction to others. So do not have this kind of distinction, or we're not based on attraction and aversion to others. So when we do this prayer, we say this when we find ourselves in situations. It's fundamental to apply this, try to observe. It's naturally we have our own attractions, our own aversions, etc. etc. It's normal that we relate to others through the others through the filter of ourselves and the I and the my, our own needs on a physical, practical level, but also on a conceptual level. When we try to somehow to reinforce this coherence that I have between what I think and what I do, my choices, etc., etc. And even if all of this is natural, what we're trying to do is the Dharma, this in the Dharma practice, it's very, how can I say, it's not natural. Not natural in the sense that very often it means to go against the current, against the current of our own habits and conditionings, our own and the majority of those who are around us. I mean, because we're all made of habits, and the habits that we have are mostly connected to our own selfishness and this obsession with self-gratification, etc. So to generate an opposite attitude means walking against the current, swimming against the current. This requires courage, a strong coherence among our actions. It requires attention, and it becomes very important to go often back to the root, and look at it and assure ourselves, that we're in the right, that we're at the right place. For this, I invite everyone to look in your small or your or big, in your own life, whatever it is, to take these four aspects, to desire the happiness of others, that he or she be free from suffering, which is not just desiring, oh, I want everybody to be happy. No, give importance to the happiness of others. The longer version is normally we say, may all beings have happiness and its causes. This is the short version. The long version says, may all beings have happiness and its causes. Senchen Pamshe Dewa Dan Tewe Gudan Empire Gyurchi Tedar, and then it continues into it. Something like, may all beings have happiness and its causes. May every being, and may this be realized. Chimaru means like not, there's no other choice. I want this to be like this. May I um, do what I can to make make every being be happy. Oh, Guru Buddha, please bless me so that I can guide and help every being. So the long version, we go from a generalized aspiration to a self-responsibility where I say, "May I do something really to help other beings." So in our daily lives, a fundamental point, I mean, these 4 points are fundamental. Lama Michel Rinpoche added 3 more, which are not, they're not additional, immeasurable, but he called them Semish, which means the 4 immeasurables. So love, compassion, joy, and equanimity, unlimited. And then he added what he called the 3 specific prayers of our times, especially dedicated to this moment, which is the prayer for there to be health, and then for the environment and for peace. So if we take these 7 as a guideline for our behavior in our daily lives, we should in front of a situation, in front of someone else, another being, try, in the best way possible to have equanimity, which means doesn't mean I need to do the same thing for everyone. This is not what equanimity means. Equanimity doesn't mean I give the same thing to everyone. Okay, I'm equanimous, so I give the same thing to everything. You know, no, equanimity, yeah, is towards the other. I need to take care of the other. Um, if if I take a lot of chocolate, for example, and I want to be have a lot of chocolate and I want to be equanimous. I give the same amount of chocolate to everyone, but sometimes chocolate is good for one and it's bad for someone else. In this case, it means to not have more aversion or attraction to anyone, but to desire the same love towards everyone, and to act thinking of the well-being of each person. So it means considering everyone, their happiness and their suffering, um, the same way. So if chocolate is good for you, I'm going to give you chocolate. If chocolate's not good for you, I'm not going to give it to you. Because I'm equanimous, thinking of your good. And the word, and there are different types of equanimity. In this context, it refers to not having more attraction to one or aversion to someone else. It's about desiring the same happiness to everyone, and giving value to the happiness and the suffering of each one in the same way, and not more to one and less to another. It's very difficult because in the middle there's the I and the my. And if I have someone in front of me that I think can do something for me that can help, and I have another person that, in my opinion, is only going to be problematic, and I need to choose which person I should help. Or what is our tendency? Is to help the one that could be a benefit to us, who can do something for us. Do it we because we don't have, because we're limited by our own selfishness. We don't have unlimited love. But when we talk about the four immeasurables, we're talking about developing these qualities measurable ways. In our daily lives, we should try to relate ourselves by giving value to the happiness of the other, giving value to the suffering of others, independently of who or he or she is or where we are. If we're at the supermarket, and we're at the cashiers, and just for a minute, I was with that person, and in our have that feeling that true happiness is important to me. Even getting to the point of being with a person that we don't like, who acts in a way that we don't agree with, who creates problems for others, and being in front of that person and feel, I want you to be happy. I don't want you to suffer. And at the same time, rejoice for the happiness of others. These 4 points should be applied in our daily lives. And the other three that Lama brought to us, they are in my daily life. I need to take care of health, my health and others. I need to take care of the environment where I live and where other people live. And I need to take care of peace. These these are part of the principles that we have. When we ask ourselves, okay, I feel like I'm a person who follows Buddhist teachings, or someone who says, I'm not a Buddhist. I'm I'm Rinpoche. So some joking around saying that there's people who are very connected to Lama Ganchen, and they were more interested in being, to be around him, and maybe not so interested in following in Buddhist philosophy, but let's just, even if we just take what Lama Ganchen taught us, which is absolutely coherent with Buddhist teachings, but let's just stay with what Rinpoche has taught us. From the very first day, he repeated the Buddha Shakyamuni's mantra and the immeasurables for his whole life, and he acted accordingly. I mean, he was like this. So if we simply take, it's not simple. I mean, it's not just simple. But if we take these 7 attitudes to develop, and giving value to happiness, to love, to suffering, compassion, giving value to suffering means seeing the suffering in someone else and wanting that person to be free from that suffering. And really joy the virtue and the happiness of others. Relating and relate to one or another, and without giving more importance to one. No, I want you to be happy because you're like this, or I don't want you to be free from your for suffering more than I want it for someone else. And the best way we can see if we have this equanimity, or is when we're in front of someone who is different than us, someone who acts in a way that we don't agree with. When we find someone that we think can hurt us, etc., etc., and there is where we need to really see. We should be able to love our own enemy. Enemy understood as the one who who wreaks havoc in our lives, who hurts us, who hurts us verbally or economically, etc. Whatever, how in any way, we're seeing that person and giving importance to his or her happiness. This would be a gigantic step forward, but it's possible. I'm thinking, for example, I read some time ago about a lady in the United States. Her husband had been killed. I can't remember if it was her husband or her son. I think it was her husband who was killed. Who was killed by a young boy who was actually a minor, and she then met this boy, and she eventually adopted him as her own son. And this is an example that shows you really can't go beyond. It's possible to see the other, even when we're in front of such a strong, such strong pain. But we need to do our best. Love, compassion, rejoicing, and equanimity, taking care of health, taking care of nature, um, and and act um, and with peace with ourselves, with our family, at work, and with society, even on a larger scale, wherever we are. And with this, we do so much. So we go back to our to the foundation, and so we do the as you get to the the 4 immeasurables. We call them the 4 immeasurable meditations. The 4 hard to call them. So, so it would be better to call them to the 4 illimited qualities. So of love, compassion, joy, equanimity, and the 3 specific objectives of this time, which is health, environment, and peace. So we should recite them in our daily life. We should apply them to the best of our ability, but at least be aware of all this. It's time now for our dedications for today.
Namkara Chinle Chokchur Gepadang Losan tempe dreme sasum ki drove munsela takto ne gyurchi. Kewa kuntu yanda lama dan drame cheki pela longche ching sadan lamge yenten rabzone dorje change kopa nyur tobo shon. Nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shing nyensen takto delek pe kuncho sumke jingilo kuncho sumke ngodrubatsol concio sumche trasciscio. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possono i tre gioielli.
May they have all sensation and sprinkle our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Jashidene, have a good day.